What I want to demonstrate today is how to use InfoLinker Plus to add some links and bookmarks to this sample document. This document we call it Sec7. I'm not quite sure why, but that's what we've always called it, and it's a good document for building links because of its structure. By structure I mean when we look through a document, I'm going to just page through here, we look for the things that are in what's called the front matter, like the table of contents, and there's more table contents, and there's figures and table of tables. That's the front matter. So all the things in there link out to other stuff in the document. Here's the beginning of what we call the body. From here to the end of the document are all the things that we're trying to find from the front matter, from the table of tables, table of figures, and from the table of contents. There's page numbers at the bottom of the page. There's paragraph numbers that have a nice pattern to them. There's figures. Here's a figure one dot, and these are the kinds of things we want to link to and we want to make bookmarks out of. So let's start. The first thing we do is we start editing the rules. Well, we have never used this document before, so we have to create a name for it, a path, and set a date for it. It doesn't matter what you pick. You can pick a doc date of when it was published or whatever. So it wants to prepare the document, and what the prepare does, as you can see down here in the bottom right hand corner, is it's going through every page and finding the fonts and the text and the contents of the document, putting it in a database that InfoLinker Plus is going to use to link the document. And it seems to be stopped. And it finished. So now we can pull up the rules. Where did the rules go? Let's click on this button. There's no rules in the document. Well, the very first thing we want to do is probably define a rule to find the table of contents. So let's say new, and with that new rule what we're going to do is look somewhere in the document between pages cover and end, and we'll call it table of contents. Now, what we saw on the table of contents was it's all proper case, all uppercase. We want it to be that, and we want it to be what we call a destination. That means it's going to look through the whole document and find the string table of contents and make it the table of contents. So we've now created our first rule. So if we want, we can close this and now go to the table of contents, which was back a few pages here. Here it is. And let's process the document and see if we get a table of contents. So we click on the Process Documents of InfoLinker Plus, and it pulls up the compiler and linker. There it is. And we can see that it's running through the document, and it's showing, as it's processing, if it's found anything. And here it's found one destination. The only rule we have in there is to find the table of contents, so hopefully that's the table of contents. As soon as it finishes the 50 pages, we'll see the result. And there's our table of contents, and we go and it highlights it and uses whatever view parameters we set to establish what the view is. So let's go back to the cover. Here's the cover, and now if we click on the bookmark table of contents, we go to the table of contents. So now we have the table of contents. Now let's work on a second rule. What we're looking for is paragraphs. So we're going to go for the paragraph numbers in the body of the document, which starts here on Adobe Acrobat page 12 and goes throughout the document. So let's create a rule to do this. Now, what we do is open up the rule editor, create a new rule, we'll call it paragraphs. It's on from page 12 to the end of the document. It's a destination. All these are going to create destinations, and in here what we need is some kind of a qualifier. What we it could be at the beginning of the page, or it could be after a carriage return. And then the pattern is that it's a number followed by a pattern that repeats, which is a period, and another number, which could be multiple digits. Close that off. And let's see, the whole pattern. Let's see, we put the parentheses here. Okay, there. That could be repeated. So that's that. Now the rename is based on where the phrases are in the regular expression. That's the first rename phrase, but we really are interested in this part, the number dot number dot number. So what we do is put a $2 here. And that's a destination, so let's save that. Okay, now we've got two rules. Let's clear out all of our marks and process again. Now we're creating a bunch of destinations. Here's all the numbers getting created. We're on page 29. And as you can see, we've created a whole bunch of other links or destinations and bookmarks. These are all the paragraphs in the document, and they're all in order through the pages. You can click on one and go to that, and it'll show you what the paragraph looks like. Go to any one of these. And I also put little underlines on all the destinations, and they're all in order. So that two rules gave us the table of contents and any of the paragraphs in the document. Now the next thing we want is to go from the table of contents, any of these references on this page of paragraphs, let's go link to the actual paragraph out in the document. Now we have 2 pages of paragraph links. So let's open up our rule editor, create a third rule. Now this is a source paragraph rule, and the pattern looks very similar, except that it's so let's say it could still be the beginning of the page, although it probably won't be the beginning of the page, or it can be a beginning of line, and then it's our number pattern. And it's only on pages 6 to 7. It's on those 2 pages. And again, our rename is the $2. Now these are source links, so we'll call it a source link. And they have a default color. So now we save the rule, source paragraphs, and we can close this. Now let's remove all of our links that we've created so far and run the process again. I found a whole bunch of sources there in the beginning of the document. Now it's going to go out and find all those paragraphs we found with the second rule and hopefully link them together. And it's finished. And here you see we have all these underlined source links on this page and hopefully on the next page. Yes. So if we want to go to 4.8.2, we click on 4.8.2 and it takes us to 4.8.2. We can click back on the table of contents and change the view, pick any link we want, and it'll take us right there. But we still don't have these. These are called internal source references, where we want to go to paragraph 4.5 inside the document. So we can write rules for that as well. Oops, so what we'll do is we'll pull up our rule editor again, and let's make an internal source reference. So let's create a new rule. These are source refs, ref paragraphs. They're in the body, so they're from page 12 to the end. They're source links. We want to differentiate them from the actual paragraphs, and we can do that we know that by looking at the document that almost all of them have some kind of a letter that occurs, an alphabetic letter occurs before the reference. See how it's the word to, and there's a space of some sort, and then comes our number, or our paragraph number reference, the very same pattern we used before. And then there's a character after it, a dot is any other character. And I've learned from looking at this document before that if there's two characters later, we don't want to have any numbers. And this is a little more complicated, but this means that we don't want any digits 0 to 9 to occur two characters after our reference to a paragraph. So that's a source link. We can go into more detail on that. So let's save this. Close our rules. Let's remove all the links that we created, and let's compile the document. Now as we move along, we hopefully will have more sources showing up in the body of the document. That's what's happening here. There's a few references getting added as we move through the document. So this kind of gives us an idea if our rules are working or not by monitoring the page numbers and number of sources and destinations. When it finishes, it'll update the document and put all the bookmarks back in, and hopefully show us here that we can go to 4.5 or 4.6 or 4.7 directly from inside the body of the document. And as you can see, we can't. So when this happens, we pull up our rules and see if maybe we made a mistake. Let's look at the source reference paragraph, and sure enough, we didn't rename this, so we need to put a $2 here. Save it. Okay. Remove the links and process it again. So we showed an increase in the number of sources, but they didn't match anything because we weren't specific about which part of the pattern was a link. Sometimes it's trial and error. And we can go ahead and write rules for figures and page numbers, and we can reorganize the bookmarks so that they're structured a little nicer. Here we go. We've got now the references here for each of the paragraphs. So we want to go to paragraph 4.6. We click on it, and we're at 4.6. The reference to 4.1.1.2. That's the beginning of linking this document. with InfoLinker Plus.